glasses.
We're good.
Yay! Hi, everybody, and welcome to Blaze Baking with Rach. This is the Mighty Blaze's first ever baking show. We're so excited to be here today. I'm Jenna Blum. I am the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze with Caroline Levitt. And in case you're new to the Blaze, we are an initiative, an organization that connects authors with readers and helps you find your next great read in the time of COVID and beyond. And also now your next great baking project. And today we are going to make the best ever chocolate chip cookies, like legit, they are the best, with Cheryl Day from Back in the Day Bakery in Savannah. And Cheryl, Rachel, we're so happy to have you both on and kicking off our show. Thank you.
Hey everybody. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to introduce Rachel, and then I'm going to be uncharacteristically quiet for like 2 minutes while Rachel talks about her connection to Cheryl and the bakery and the cookies. Rachel is going to be our Blaze Baking with Rach host going forward for all the shows. Ta-da! She is an author, and I have to pull over my iPad because I forgot my glasses. I'm not fair today. So I'll read Rachel's bio. Rachel's articles and essays have appeared in the Huffington Post, where actually she wrote an essay about the cookies that went viral, which she'll talk about. Glamour, Parenting, Kveller, Modern Loss, and the Philadelphia Jewish Exponent. She is a graduate of University of Pennsylvania and received her MBA from Ross School of Business at the U of Michigan, which is great because I hit her up for like Blaze advice all the time. In her previous life as a marketing professional, Rachel worked on the business side of Time Inc., Life, People, Real Simple, Sports Illustrated for Kids, and In Style. She lives in Pennsylvania, where it's freaking cold, y'all, with her husband and 2 children. She's the author of 4 books. Her most recent book is Life, Accessories, a Memoir and Fashion Guide, and was released in 2019. And she's thrilled to combine her love of baking, books, and promo with work on A Mighty Blaze. We are so lucky to have you, Rachel. Welcome. And now I'm going to zip it and let you guys talk about your love of baking and the cookies and all the good things.
Thanks, Jenna, for that lovely intro. I'm so happy Cheryl's here today on this cold day here. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about these cookies and why I love them so much. And then I'm going to introduce Cheryl. And I'm actually going to be baking the cookies here in my home kitchen, which I just made into a television studio. I cleaned up all the dishes from my family from lunch, and now it's like a TV studio. And as I bake the cookies, we're going to talk to Cheryl, and we're going to ask her about some of her favorite things to bake, secret ingredients, her new cookbook, and lots of good stuff. So Jen and I were talking about this last night. I first discovered the Back in the Day Bakery, I want to say in like 2006, probably, when I started to go visit my Aunt Jo and Uncle Dick, who live in Savannah, who moved there a little over 15 years ago. And Aunt Jo, who like knows everyone in town, she knows every store, every restaurant. She said, we got to go to the Back in the Day Bakery. So she brought me in, and it's the most fabulous bakery. You really feel like you're back in the day. It's very retro 50s. And we had the most delicious chocolate cookie I've ever tasted. I think we had it with some iced coffee. And it was so nice for me to spend the day with my aunt like that, to be in a place like that. And so whenever I think of the cookies, I think of goodness and love and all that good stuff. And then Cheryl wrote her first cookbook, which I have right here, the Back in the Day Bakery Cookbook, which was a best-selling cookbook. And it came out in 2012. Cheryl signed it, and Aunt Jo sent it to me, of course. And so when I was home, because I can't be in Savannah all the time, obviously, I started baking the cookies at home from the cookbook. And I was baking them for my family and then friends. And then they sort of developed a cult following from my family and friends. And I had to have the cookies with me wherever I went. So as Jenna mentioned, I wrote an essay about them for the Huffington Post. And then everybody called them my famous Huffington Post Back in the Day cookies. So it's just like a part of who I am. So when I started working with Jenna and the awesome team at A Mighty Blaze, they said, what kind of show do you want to do? And I said, let's do a baking show. So we're very excited to be here with the creator of the most amazing cookies, Cheryl Day. I'm going to introduce you, Cheryl, with your bio, and then we're going to get cooking and we're going to learn a lot and have fun. So Cheryl Day founded Back in the Day Bakery in Savannah, Georgia, along with her husband, Griff, in 2002. They're the authors of two baking books. Back in the Day Bakery, Made with Love, and the Back in the Day Bakery Cookbook, which was a New York Times bestseller. Cheryl is a leader in the protest movement and the co-founder of the Southern Restaurants for Social Justice, which we want to talk about a little bit, of course. She's also a member of the James Beard Foundation Food and Beverage Investment Fund for BIPOC Leadership Committee. Cheryl's an avid collector of vintage cookbooks, and her enthusiasm for enriching lives through the time-honored art of scratch baking is one of her most endearing qualities, among many others, I will say.
Oh, thank you. That's such a great introduction.
Welcome.
Joe, I know you're out there.
Yes, my Aunt Jo is definitely watching. A lot of friends and family are watching, and a lot of people watching. Some of you guys have probably made these cookies, and some of you have never made the cookies. Now, you're welcome to bake along with us today. The ingredients were posted on the Blaze Facebook page and Instagram and all that good stuff. So if you have this stuff, why don't we get baking a little bit? And as I bake, Jenna can learn some more from Cheryl. So the first thing I do, by the way, and Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, I do the dry ingredients first in a bowl. So
right.
It's 2.5 cups of flour. So I already have a little pre-measured. This is 2 cups. So here's 2. And I'm going to do my
cup, Rachel.
Yeah, that's a big cup, right?
It is.
And a half. And then the only other thing you add to the dry ingredients are 1.25 teaspoons of baking soda, right here, and 1.25 teaspoons of salt. Salt is one of the key ingredients. You don't use a lot of it, but it comes up at the end.
It sure does.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the recipe, Cheryl?
I've been making this recipe, Rachel, since I was, very little. I started making it with my mom. I remember being obsessed with, there was a place, a cookie shop in Los Angeles where I grew up, that I was obsessed with their cookies, and I decided that I wanted to make the best cookies too. It was, I'm trying to think of what it was called. I'm having a senior moment, but it'll come to me. But anyway, I just decided that I thought, I want to make really good, chocolate chip cookies, and maybe I could make a little extra money by selling them. And so I did. And it's just the one thing that I never get sick of. I never get sick of making them. I never get sick of eating them. It is interesting. I do like to play around with, we talked about this a little bit, but I do like to play around with mixing chocolate chips and finding new ones to play with. So that's probably the only thing that I change.
The chocolate chips. I do that too.
Yeah.
Because I think in the recipe, I think in the book it calls for chocolate chunks, which I happen to have today. But if I don't have chunks, I use semi-sweet chips. Sometimes I use milk chocolate chips. Sometimes I use mini chips. It really doesn't matter, right?
Doesn't matter. I mean, it's a great base, and some people have told me that they like to use white chocolate chips or, milk chocolate and mix it with semi-sweet. Something, a current obsession for me right now, as you mentioned, I'm working on this cookbook, and I've been playing around with chocolate wafers, which are these round, fat they're bigger than a chocolate chip. And the way that they melt inside of baked goods is pretty amazing. So I've been playing around with those a lot and mixing and matching, but yeah.
Well, now I can't wait till the new cookbook comes out.
I know.
We'll get back to the second. So we have our dry ingredients together. I wanted to give people a chance if they're baking at home with us. And you can come back and reference this video. So the dry ingredients here we have in a bowl is 2.5 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Very easy. So the next step is we're going to go to our bigger bowl. And I have my KitchenAid Mixmaster here, which gets a lot of use for sure. If you have one of these stands, Jenna has her pretty in red. I love the red one. I have the white one. But if you don't have it, one of the stands, you can always use one of the handheld mixers, which I know sometimes it's easier for people to get a hold of this. to get a hold of those. So in this bowl that we're going to use the mix master with, we're going to do 2 sticks of butter that are at room temperature. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to use butter, right?
You have to use butter. Can I interject right here and give a little, this is not the time to talk about warm weather, but something I've discovered in the warm weather of Savannah is if people don't have the patience to let their butter get to room temperature, you can use it cold, cube it, and it is great, like I said, when it's warmer. And then you just have to cream it. You kind of have to do the reverse, let it cream up to room temperature, but cut it in like little chunks.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if you don't have, like you need these cookies now and you don't have time
which has happened to me.
Well, because it's hard to, get it perfect in the microwave. You can try, but sometimes you get those little melty bits. So yeah, you can just like cut little slices or cubes and do it exactly how you're about to do it. But then you definitely have to let it cream until it's still light and fluffy and room temperature. So that's just a little trick.
Cheryl, you know what that reminded me of? I'm sure you know this. We messaged a little bit, but Jennifer Gardner, maybe Jennifer's watching today. I don't know. She made your scones.
She made the chocolate chips the other day.
She made them in her nightgown in her kitchen. She looked amazing, of course. Jen and I were going to wear our nightgowns today, but we decided to get dressed. So, I'm wearing a flannel shirt, which kind of looks like a nightgown. Anyway, so I noticed that when Jennifer Gardner did your scones, she did use cold butter, and she did exactly what you said. She's a good student. She chopped it up, and I had never seen that before. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
So next to the butter that mine's at room temperature because I took it out a little while ago. We're going to do a cup of brown sugar, which I have pre-measured out. So I'm going to add that. Of course, it's like sticking because I put it in so well. Hang on.
No, you made sure that it was packed.
I really packed that in. Okay. So the brown sugar's in there, and we're going to add to that the regular sugar, granulated sugar, which I have in my coasters in my house. My pretty little coasters. I love to bake and I love to use fun things around the kitchen.
I do too. I mean, even at the bakery, I like to have fun little tools. My favorite, like I have a whisk that I like to whisk my flours with when I'm doing that. And it's got like a shiny gold. Yeah, exactly. Just little things. It's just little things that really bring a little smile to your face. What is that?
And when everybody can go travel again, you all have to go to the Back in the Day Bakery in Savannah because not only does everything smell and taste beautiful, the whole bakery it's so much fun to look around. There's little things like this. Mm-hmm. It's almost like looking around in an antique shop or something, which is.
What does that say on there, Rachel?
It says "Live, Love, Bake," which a friend bought for me.
Cute.
Of course, half the stuff in my kitchen Aunt Jo bought for me, obviously, with her.
Of course. We love Aunt Jo.
Of course. So I have both sugars and the butter, and in there I'm going to add just 1 teaspoon of vanilla.
Yeah.
Am I doing okay, Cheryl? Am I doing it right?
No, you're doing perfect.
I feel like I have the teacher watching me in a lab or something.
You're a pro. You've done these so many times.
It's fun. So I'm going to take these ingredients together, and it might get a little loud. I'm just going to run it for 2 minutes. I'm going to put it on the KitchenAid. Okay?
Yeah.
I got to put this in here. Actually, that's not too loud. And because the butter is really, really at room temperature, I've tried to cheat before, and it makes it a little harder, but this is blending really beautifully. So it's mixing up.
If you do cheat, definitely don't rush. You need to make sure that you're getting it, back up to room temperature and it gets that light and fluffy texture. Because I really think that's the biggest mistake that people make with cookies is to under cream their butter and sugar.
We were talking about that last night, Jenna, right? In method. You can't rush it.
No, I actually, Cheryl, I did the first time I made the cookies. I put the butter and sugar in my mixer, and then I forgot about it because I'm actually blonde and just sort of left the room. And half an hour later, I came back, and it was so fluffy.
Oh my gosh.
But the cookies turned out strangely well. Like they were very puffy and sort of airy. And I thought, I guess I should always forget to about the stuff that I leave in my mixer, because they turned out super well. So we have questions from our audience. This
looks really good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
I could lick the screen like right now. One of the questions is, what is the most important tool that you have in your kitchen for baking? Like, what is it most important to spend money on if you're a baker and you want to budget for that one item?
To make an investment piece?
Yeah.
I think definitely I love to have a stand mixer. If you think you're going to be, becoming a baker and you're going to be doing a lot of baking, I think it's definitely worth the investment, and you can certainly find great sales with them. I like all different. I have a couple of different brands that I use. I don't think we want to say it here, but you can definitely look around and shop for a stand mixer, although a hand mixer is great to start with because they're a lot less expensive. But I would say that's probably the biggest investment piece. Otherwise, really, you just need like a hand whisk, some nice mixing bowls, like Rachel said, have things that you enjoy looking at and love using, but that's probably the biggest investment piece. So.
Love it. And Rachel, just quickly, how much white sugar?
A cup of white sugar. It's a cup of brown sugar, a cup of white sugar. What we have in there is a cup of brown sugar, a cup of white sugar, 2 sticks of butter, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And we're about to add the eggs. Yeah. I would also say with the stand mixer, I got mine, I think, when I was married 20 years ago, and I didn't use it for a long time. And several years, probably at least 10 years ago, I put it out on my counter. It's so heavy. So when it's out on the kitchen counter, you will use it. Just keep it. Yeah. And I think it is a really good investment. I have some friends who've gotten into baking because of the pandemic, and they've purchased the mixers for that. And I definitely think it's worth it. So, and
if you look around, you can definitely, find some good sales and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I would say that's really the biggest, investment piece. But really, if you're just getting started, like I said, a hand mixer is great, and you'll still use that hand mixer even if you kind of bump up to a stand mixer later. It's not like a waste. You can still use that for things. So like whipping up egg whites. I use it a lot when I'm whipping up egg whites to fold into pancake batters, and so you'll definitely still use it, but that would be the one piece that I would say kind of save up for.
That is amazing. Thank you. And my question is like an aspiring baker. Sorry, Rachel, do you have a step?
No, the next step is we're going to add the eggs. Should I add the eggs and then you'll ask your question? By the way, again, they're in a cute little bowl because it just looks nice that way, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to add the 2 eggs, and then, go ahead and ask your question, Jenna, and I'm going to mix these in too.
Eggs are room temperature too, I'm sure.
They are room temperature. I'm a good student.
And for the eggs, do you whip the eggs before you add them one by one? I've heard that.
No, I don't. It's just 2 eggs, so I really don't. The only time that I would do that is if I'm making even when I make them at the bakery, I don't do it. But if I'm making a huge batch of something like cake batter, sometimes I'll, pre-whip the eggs because you don't want to over mix.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my bad then. Okay. So here's Mary, our friend Mary wants to know how many of us eat raw cookie dough. Me, even though of course it's like rice.
I don't, because I have heard of too many horrible stories. I had a baking assistant once who was addicted to raw cookie dough, and I forbid her from doing it at the bakery. She didn't do it at the bakery, but she used to do it at home. And she landed, before she worked for me, in the hospital twice, 2 times. And I said, she said, I'll still do it.
You need to stop.
Okay.
I will say about the cookie dough, I make it so much. My kids always know when I'm making it. They're upstairs now. I bet they might come down if they hear this. And my kids are 17 and almost 15. I mean, it's not like they're little kids, but I still give them just a teaspoon of the cookie dough.
Yeah.
So good. They love it.
Honestly, I don't think it's a teaspoon that did it.
Right.
I think in the case of this young lady, it was more than a teaspoon.
I'm sure.
Quite a bit of
this particular cookie dough is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to lick the spoon with cake batter too. That was one of my personal faves, but I don't know. I just stay away from it these days. The whole raw egg thing, but
it's probably smart. I give it to my black lab. He gets to lick the batter off the spatula and off the whisk. It flies everywhere. But black labs can eat like cow carcasses and they're fine.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, they have that like disposal digestion.
Yeah.
One of my questions is about baking itself. As an aspiring baker, who I love to bake, I procrastinate. It's my meditation device and procrastination device. But I am sloppy because like fiction, you make stuff up, and baking, I'm like, oh, I don't really need to follow this recipe to the letter. How important is the method versus the ingredients? Like or are they both equally super important?
If I had to choose, I would say the method is probably the most important. I mean, I don't know. Ingredients for me are really important too. Mm-hmm. But with baking, it's such a science that, unless you're prepared to, have a slight fail that's maybe still edible, I would stick to, following the recipe, especially for things like flours and leavenings and, especially leavenings. I mean, like baking powder and baking soda are not equal. So
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, most people have. I've gotten to the point where teaching new baking assistants, and I'll, something will come out and I'll be like, we do a chocolate cake. It's actually in the first cookbook, the back in the day bakery cookbook. And it's very unusual. The chocolate heaven cake. It has, instead of baking powder, which most cakes use, it uses baking soda. So that's kind of a rookie mistake that if you would use, assume and use baking powder instead, but it really is baking soda, so, and it's delicious.
I don't know if I can even ask this, but what is your worst baking fail?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know if I've ever had any baking fails that were inedible.
Okay.
I remember early on when we opened the bakery, gosh, that's 20 years ago, Griff and I, before we had any employees at all, and just racing around the kitchen, we would create new products, I guess. The one that Jen Garner made, actually, the Biscone, that was a potential baking fail, but it ended up being a new product. But the one thing that comes to mind is once I had a cake and it was underbaked. It was like a big cake. And I kind of, thought I was a professional now. And I could tell that it was cooked and it wasn't completely cooked. And I needed it for an order. And, it was like a big thing where I had to end up making it. But other than that, so now I do always still, even though I'm a professional, I test my cakes to make sure that they're cooked in the center instead of just pretending, like I could tell with my finger, which sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't.
You have to test. You know what? I'm going to start to mix the dry ingredients with these as we talk. So this is sort of the last step before you get to the chocolate chips, which is a big step. So now you take your baking soda, salt, and flour, and you gradually mix it into the mixer. Now, we were talking about method. I think adding it gradually is important for the way it mixes. And also so you won't have flour all over your kitchen, which I've done.
Exactly.
So you want to keep the mixer at a low speed.
And that looks like a nice tool to do it with.
Yeah, it has a little...
Yeah, that's like perfect for that amount. I'm looking to see if I can see it, but I use little bowl scrapers when I'm doing a big batch.
Yeah.
To add in, I'll grab one before
these are good. I think my mother-in-law got these for me when I got married. She's an excellent baker as well. She's probably watching this. So these are good bowls, and I'm just going to add it probably in batches of like a third and a third and a third. So
yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Cheryl, can you walk us through? I love to bake so much, and I wonder if it's different when you're doing it professionally. Like, if I fail at a cake and maybe my cake fail because I'm not following the method exactly, that could be it. But if then it's just me, or I just serve it to like my neighbors or something, it must be so different when you're running the bakery. Do you still have the same love for your baking?
I do. And I would say the only thing that's probably different from when I'm making one cake at home or a small batch of cookies, when I do it at the bakery, I do measure in weight by grams, because that is the one thing that people can either add too much flour or too little flour just by how they're measuring their flour. I mean, you start to learn. But actually, in the new cookbook, I did very sort of reluctantly, because it's not how I bake at home. But a lot of professionals do buy my cookbooks, and people are starting to use scales to weigh things. So I did convert recipes that you'll be able to have the option of either measuring it by hand or measuring it with a scale. And I think that's the biggest mistake, is that, you know, if you're using too much flour or too little flour, or, you know, that's probably would be the main ingredient that would be a problem. But honestly, what I say is, you know, take notes about what you do and what you like when you, you know, over creamed your butter that time. If you liked that, then, you know, just make a little note in your cookbook. Well, you know, let me cream that a little extra, or maybe next time, you know, if my cookies spread too much, maybe I need to check to make sure I'm adding the right amount of flour, or, you know, just little things like that. Because honestly, I think that's the only way that you'll improve, is to take notes on yourself and pay attention to the results.
I totally agree with that. As a self-taught baker, I developed so much more confidence over the years in just making things over and over and over again, to the point of Cheryl's cookies, which people call my cookies. And I say they're Cheryl's cookies. I mean, I could make these in the middle of the night if I had to.
Right. But I'm sure you have things that you've tweaked by now.
Right. And even with Cheryl's cookies, I follow the recipe. I do. But when I make them in my house, just as far as like size, I will say Cheryl's cookies in the bakery are a bit bigger. I mean, she's got a big bakery oven, and it took me a while to figure out the right size. And you guys will see the after product. Yeah. But, you know, even with like making brownies, I have a certain recipe where I use a certain pan that I know works better than another pan. And it took me a while to figure that out. So definitely agree with that. So we have our beautiful dough, everything mixed beautifully. Yeah. And it's funny. I have such a sweet tooth. I think I've talked about this with Jenna. I love anything sweet. I mean, please, I'm just such a nut for dessert, but I'm not the biggest chocolate person in the world. Chocolate chip cookies are perfect for me. So, you know, some people like to put, I follow the recipe. This is 2 cups. I'm using chocolate chunks today. Like I said before, sometimes I use chips, but I'm going to dump these in here.
I love that cup. This is the bowl scraper that I was talking about. This is kind of a big one, but it's a great tool. I mean, it's just plastic little, I mean, they're cheap, but it's a great, like if you have you can add ingredients with that, or get that bowl that Rachel.
Now, Cheryl, do you mix in the chocolate chips by hand, or do you put it back on the mixer?
I put it on, well, I'm doing a big batch, but even at home, I put it on the mixer and then I quickly, just like
that's what I do too. Yeah. I didn't know if that was cheating.
No, you bake, I mean, I just do it quickly and then just.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it quickly. It blends it well.
Yeah. Now, will you bake these all today, or do you save? How do you do that, Rachel?
I think I'm going to bake them all today. Yeah.
But sometimes you save your batch.
We were talking about this before. Sometimes I'll save the dough and refrigerate it and then go back to it. I know, I'm curious to get your opinion on this. I know there's some recipes, not this one, but there are some recipes, and that you have too, that call for making the dough and then refrigerating it for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to with the chocolate chips, but one thing that I've learned again in the Savannah heat is that I actually just started doing this probably last summer. You can actually scoop the cookie dough and put it in a Tupperware or whatever, and you can freeze that dough too.
That's
and so you can pull out if you want two, pretend you only want one, but you've got to do 2 cookies so that you can keep the parchment down, right? Or maybe even 3 on a pan. But right. So then you can just make 3 cookies one night or whatever that you have a craving for. So yeah, they bake really well, and then from the freezer. So that's a good
speaking of the parchment, I'm baking with parchment paper. I also have those. I think Jenna, you have those, the Silpats. Yeah,
I do. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask Cheryl her opinion of that. But Cheryl, first from Ron Block, who's our librarian foodie friend, do you experiment with different kinds of flour in your recipes at all?
I do. I don't really use a lot of alternative flours per se. I have kind of in this new cookbook played around. I do like to mix pastry flour and all-purpose flour just because I get great results with biscuits and some of my cakes. Yeah, I love those Silpats. I use those at home too.
I have them too. Guess who bought them for me?
I'm sure, Joanna. And but so yeah,
no, that's an important step, that in these cookies you have to have parchment paper or something like the Silpat, because otherwise they're gonna stick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna this is where I said about the size. I'm gonna scoop. I'm probably gonna make 2 trays of I'll probably do 12 on each tray. So I'm just gonna do I might squeeze in 15. I don't know. I'm using a big tray. But I make them a little smaller than Cheryl makes them in the store.
And you've got 2 kids at home right now?
I do.
So how long will those cookies last?
Oh, not long. I'll tell you, my husband, who has a very dry sense of humor, he says, he'll kind of wander into the kitchen and have a bite of the cookie. He'll say what you want about my wife. She makes a damn good cookie. I don't really know what people are saying about me, but hopefully it's nice stuff about the cookie.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. So I'm using a scooper right here to put them in, and I'm gently, my hands are clean. Obviously, I wash them first. We're all washing our hands so much. Yeah. But I'm just putting the cookies out on the tray. We will do another step, which I think is like the secret step that makes these cookies the best before we put them in the oven. So.
Ooh, the secret step. We have a question from one of our beloved audience members. Cheryl, is your new cookbook out, and who inspires your recipes? So maybe we could go to the who inspires your recipes first, and then we can talk about your cookbooks.
The new cookbook comes out this October, and it's my first solo cookbook. My husband, my loving husband, Griff, decided that he did not want to be on this cookbook cover. So it tells a personal story about my baking experience, but oh my gosh, who inspires me? I tell a lot of stories in the new cookbook about a lot of the women that inspire me, but it started with my mother and my grandmother, because those are the 2 ladies. I'm a self-taught baker also, turned professional, but those are the 2 ladies that taught me how to bake. And then honestly, these days, I'm inspired by a lot of young pastry chefs that I have met on Instagram and all social media. So yeah, it's such a great time to be inspired by visual things. And I get to know a lot of young ladies that way. And we share secrets and stories, and, we used to get together. In fact, one of them just sent me a picture a couple of years ago. We had gotten together at a friend's bakery in Los Angeles when I was there. And, it's fun to meet people and to be inspired by one another. Just kind of like y'all probably do too.
Do you have a favorite recipe from your mom or your grandma that's like your secret pet recipe?
I would say that chocolate heaven cake, probably. Is my favorite. I think everybody should know how to make a good chocolate cake.
I'm gonna make it. You've inspired me. I want to make it.
It's easy. It's a very it uses really great chocolate, unsweetened chocolate, but it doesn't have butter. It has oil, and it's so simple. You can actually make it in one bowl. The crumb is just incredible. It's the best chocolate cake I think I've ever had, and I still keep turning back to that one recipe. I've come up with a couple of other new chocolate recipes, but for some reason, I mean, some that use cocoa. This one uses melted chocolate and coffee, and I just think it's the best chocolate cake. So that would probably be.
That's what I'm making tomorrow now. You've inspired me. And my daughter's birthday is next weekend, and she loves chocolate. So maybe I'll make her a chocolate cake.
You're going to be addicted to that recipe. I promise you.
That sounds so really good. The chocolate, like chocolate or espresso in a chocolate cake, coffee or espresso is often like the secret depth.
And some people think, in fact, somebody wrote me the other day and said, my kids don't like when I put coffee in chocolate, because a lot of recipes do call for that. But I think that it really just brings out the flavor of the chocolate. It's not something that I would say that you can taste as a ingredient. I just think it makes it better. Thank you.
I would agree. I love coffee and chocolate together.
Girl, how do you test your cakes for doneness? You mentioned that was your one slight baking fail before. Yeah. How do you do it now?
So I still, to this day, I have a old-fashioned cake tester that, it's like a metal, and it's like a little skewer. I used to use little sticks, and sorry guys. Somebody is driving their truck around town.
Right by the bakery. They want some cookies.
Whoa. But so I use an old-fashioned cake tester. It says cake tester. I forget where I got it. And then recently I just got one for bundt cakes that has like a little thermometer on the end, and that thing blows my mind. That is awesome, because sometimes bundt cakes are so deep you don't want to overbake them, but you can't tell if they're done. But this one turns red when it's done, and that's really cool. But yeah, usually I use like a skewer or something like that. But
I used to have an idea.
I used to have little wooden skewers all over the floor at the bakery. So I finally invested in a little metal one that I can, wipe clean every time.
I make a lot of bundt cakes, and I've had problems like that before. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I mean, I got it from the same place that you buy bundt pans, probably. Right. And it has a little, it is fascinating. It literally turns like bright red when it's done. And often it's times, when you think maybe it's a little underbaked, but it comes out perfect every time. So
I think we're going to do the little step before we put the cookies in the oven.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, speaking of the oven, the secret step, speaking of the oven, my oven's already been preset. And I think something that I'd like Cheryl to address too after I do this is the whole thing about ovens and people's ovens running hot. And I always feel like, since I've talked to people a lot about baking, and I'm sort of like the amateur, people ask me, how do you bake that? How do you bake that? And I'll say, well, some people's ovens run hotter than others, and it's hard to regulate that, I guess.
Here's my little cake tester thing.
Oh, too cool.
This is the bundt cake one. And so that little tip turns bright red when it's done. Pretty cool.
That is so cool.
For my cookies now, I managed to get 12 on each tray. Mine are a little bit smaller. They're big size cookie, but they're a little smaller than the ones in the bakery. And what I did is this little step, you put the palm of your hand down like this. And this is a very professional term. You smush it down. Definitely smush.
And then
gotta smush. The secret ingredient on these cookies is you sprinkle a little bit of flour and then a little bit of sea salt on top of each cookie. I probably do a little more sea salt than most people, but when you taste these cookies, I mean, everybody loves everything about them, but people sort of taste them and they say, ooh.
Yeah, that little.
Because they're not expecting it.
I like to do that Malden fleur de sel. And sometimes, everybody doesn't have that in their kitchen. So a little pinch of sea salt is fine. But I tell you, if you ever, when you start investing in ingredients in your kitchen, like good vanilla, malt and sea salt, you can buy a small little tub of it, and you'll be surprised at how much you'll use it on different things. And the flavor of it is just so special, I think.
Yeah, so. That's really good to know. I know. So the cookbook does call for the fleur de sel. Since I didn't have a chance to run out and get that, I just sprinkle on a little flour and then this sea salt that I have in my canister, where it's all French. It says so. Yeah. So it feels
there you go.
Kind of legit. So you just sprinkle it on it. It's just, you kind of get a sense. I definitely see some of the salt on there. Like I said, I'm a little generous with it, but I think it makes a big difference.
It does.
Yeah.
It's just like that sweet and salty, I don't know, little surprise.
Yeah. Now I'm going to put mine in the oven, and I have a double oven here. I feel very lucky that I have one, so that I can do them both at once, because you want to put it on like the bottom third of the oven. That's what Cheryl says to do, so they don't burn, so to say. I mean, I think that's, if you don't have a double oven, just do one at a time.
Exactly.
Or just make half of it, like Cheryl said earlier, and make some more tomorrow. So I'm going to go put it in, and we're going to flip it halfway through. Now with this size cookie, Cheryl, I'll say I bake it for about 6 to 7 minutes, and then I flip it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one thing about your oven. You see, your oven very well, and that's really important to know. Just like you have to know your ingredients and the methods, Jenna, you definitely have to know your oven. If you've got a hot oven or cold oven, you can calibrate it, up or down, but you need an oven thermometer to check it out. Or if it's really bad, you probably should call a professional to fix it.
But I'm going to put these in.
I'm going to show you guys something, if I can do this well with Zoom, probably not, but my oven is like this 1950s.
Oh, cute.
And when you turn this up, a little light comes on, and right next to the light, it says temperature dial plus 100 degrees. So this was in my apartment when I moved in. I literally think it's from like 1932. It weighs 5,000 pounds. And everything I bake has to be like set at, indeed, like the oven cooks at 100 degrees higher than what the dial is set at, but it bakes every time. I know, it's very weird.
It tells you though.
Yeah. The previous owners put like a little label that said plus 100 degrees. And at first I thought they were kidding. And then I incinerated everything. So it's kind of cool. So your oven best. Do you have like an oven tuner who comes into the bakery and like makes sure the ovens are working well? Or like, how does this work with the pro ovens?
I mean, hopefully the ovens are working well, but when you're baking every single day, like multiple times, I don't know, you can just tell. It's like a sixth sense. You can tell when, how hot it is, or if it's feeling a little cool today. I think that's one of the things I really love about baking, and I try to teach folks, is that it's the type of craft that you really do have to be present. And use all your senses, and so you just have to be aware that and you can just tell when you're doing it every single day, or you'll notice that, these cookies are browner than they were yesterday, at the same exact amount of time. And so what we'll do is we usually adjust based on using a thermometer. So if it's running hot, like 25 degrees or whatever, we'll just say, okay, now it's really, you're supposed to be baking at 325 instead of 350. Or it's a little tricky for folks coming in that are new, but it's one of those things. You just have to be present when you're baking.
I have a question about that. I'm so sorry. I'm asking all the questions, but
wait, Jenna, can I interrupt for a sec? I think I forgot to say that you bake these at 350. I don't know if I said that. So we're baking these at 350 degrees. That's what we're doing these at. For those of you baking at home, I have mine on convection bake, which I know sometimes bakes a little hotter, but I like the way it bakes.
But so you still bake at 350 though in convection?
I do. That's probably why I bake it a little for not as much time.
Less time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
Sorry, Jenna. What were you going to say? I just didn't want to.
No. I was just I was fascinated by, just knowing when things are done and how you develop a knack for it over time. And my secret theory is that bakers have really good noses. Is there like a moment where you can just sort of sniff the recipe and go, oh, it's done? Like,
yeah. And we call it baker's intuition. When, there's a lot of timers going off, but at one point when there were a lot of bakers in the kitchen, everybody had to have their own timer because, people were turning off other people's timers and it was a mess. But no, we call it baker's intuition because you just do. If you're really being present, you'll smell it, you'll sense it. I don't know. It's like some matrixy thing that happens.
Mm-hmm. I can usually smell when bread is done or when cookies are done. Like there's just one moment where it clicks over and I think I have to take that out of my ancient oven. And the weirdest thing is I was at my brother's house in Florida and he can do it too. Like he was puttering around the house and all of a sudden he was like, ding, like he could just scent when something was done. So I wondered.
It's a good quality as a budding baker, for sure.
I would agree with the having to be present thing too. Like, and I love baking, so I really do try to be present. I do it a lot with my daughter. I just try to be there and do it. On the times where I'm doing it and I'm writing something or doing a million other things, I'll be like, wait, how many eggs did I put in? To the point of like, I have to open up the trash to like count the shells. And I was like, I can't be doing this. Like I need to.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we do in a professional kitchen is that and you're doing it already, Rachel, but like you don't want to be digging through the trash. And I've learned this the hard way too. But so, you just have everything mise en place, the French, term for getting your crap together, basically. But so you want to have your eggs cracked. You want to have everything ready. You don't want to be running across the room and realizing that you only have, one egg when you need 3 eggs. And, so it does help to have all your ingredients organized and organize your mind, be present. And then that way you can say, yes, I did put in 3 eggs because I remember I was present. I remember putting in 3 eggs.
Yeah. No, that's definitely helpful, especially these days. I don't know. Home baking, I think, has really gained in popularity since the pandemic.
Home,
right?
Absolutely. I think people have discovered the therapy that professional bakers, we knew that it was therapy, but apparently a lot of folks gravitated to it during the pandemic, which I just thought was so great. But I mean, it's a great craft. It's a great skill. It's fun. It's relaxing. And you get to eat the results. I mean, come on. What could be better than that?
What could be bad? Speaking of just the recent months, can you tell us a little bit about being the co-founder of the movement for Southern Restaurants for Social Justice? I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah.
I think you called it. I think there was some posts about it, like baking for social justice, and you had the bake sales. I thought it was so.
Bakers Against Racism was another one.
Bakers Against Racism.
Yeah, just a lot of folks. Me and 2 other friends got together. It was such a tumultuous summer, and a lot of us were, we were all stuck in the house too, being glued to the television, and I think everything just got magnified. That we just really wanted to come up with a way that we could make a difference. And what I stress to people is that it's not a political issue; it's a human issue, and we just started this organization with Southern Restaurants and got a lot of our friends together and raised a good amount of money for social justice causes, like over $100,000 for our first one.
That's amazing.
And then, you have to understand too, this is during a time when restaurants, were struggling, but they still, all of our friends still wanted to take part, and we did bake sales and did little things, and it added up to $100,000. And so now we've continued with it, and we're donating. We came up with a grant system that we're doing, and we're giving money to Black-owned businesses because Black-owned businesses have a really tough time getting capital and are really left out. And so we just thought that this would be a great way for us to give back to that community that was very marginalized. And then with the James Beard organization, I was asked to be a part of that because of Southern Restaurants for Racial Justice, and just to create awareness for, the BIPOC community. And it's been really great.
That's amazing. No, I remember reading about it over the summer before this show came into being. And I thought, I really want to talk to Cheryl about that. I think that's just amazing how you guys were just, you saw a need for something and you took what you were so good at and what you love doing. And
I always say bakers are the sweetest people on earth, because we do really wear our hearts on our sleeves. And really, when you think about bake sales, I'm sure you all have been involved in, bake sales when you were little, or selling Girl Scout cookies or whatever. Bake sales have always been an easy, accessible way to raise money, and people don't seem to mind that they're going to get, cookies and slices of cake and brownies at the end of it all. So
never.
Yeah.
I feel like we should put that on the t-shirt. Bakers are the sweetest people on earth.
That is.
Yeah. By the way, while Cheryl was telling us about the amazing work she's doing, I flipped the cookies. And actually, I think I have 4 minutes left.
Nice.
I heard the timer and I had this Pavlovian reaction to it. Like, oh,
right.
I know. I'm going to have to.
So halfway through the baking, I flip them. So I do them 6 or 7 minutes, and then you turn them around and you do them on the other side. So that's important too. You can't just throw them in there and forget about them. No,
you can't, because there's seconds between an overbaked cookie and a perfectly baked, crisp on the edges and chewy in the center.
Yeah.
Yum.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you like your cookie softer or harder or chewier, or?
I like a crunchy edge, golden crunchy edge, but a little, chewy in the middle. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, really, I've overbaked chocolate chip cookies too at home, and they're good. You just have to eat them quickly, I think. They're not going to be good maybe in, a few hours, but they're good when they're warm. So.
Well, in Cheryl's cookbook, she describes these cookies. First of all, it says chocolate chip cookies, cookie most likely to cause a riot if we run out.
Yeah.
And she also says that these cookies possess just the right balance of crispiness and tenderness. Adding a sprinkle of Florida salt before baking accentuates the chocolate and gives the sweetness an edge. So I think
better head note.
A perfect description of these cookies for sure. And she says to enjoy with a glass of milk. I'm not a big milk drinker, but I do enjoy a glass of milk with a cookie every once in a while. Who doesn't?
No, yeah. My husband still, every day almost, he can be found. In fact, I may have said that in there too. He can be found with a tall glass of milk and a chocolate chip cookie. He never seems to get sick of them. It's so funny.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't have a chocolate tooth, and I love these cookies. Honestly, my jam is the salt caramel.
Yeah, the caramelized. Sure, it is a great balance.
Yeah. Do you try butterscotch chips in these ever? Or
I was just gonna say, I did. I think it's in that book, or maybe it was in the second cookbook, but I'll have to look it up. I did a smorgasbord cookie, and I put all kinds of stuff and you could use this cookie. I mean, basically, I think it was pretty much this cookie as the base. I did add some cane syrup in there to add a little Southern flavor instead of vanilla. And then little mini, those butterscotch chips, mini pretzels, potato chips. I mean, you could just... You could use this cookie as a base and then go to town with add-ins. Just use, your 2 cups of, mix up stuff. If you don't want chocolate, why not put those, do white chocolate or butterscotch chips. That would be delicious.
Oh, Rachel, look. Oh my gosh. They look
out.
I just had the sense that we were talking about that they were done.
Yeah, that intuition.
Yeah.
It's that intuition. And obviously you can't smell what's going on in my kitchen, but I can.
They look perfect.
Here
so
they
now
are.
Your kid's going to run down?
I think so. Although I don't know. They're like, you're broadcasting what's going on. But I bet they will be here soon and they will definitely enjoy them. And, you know, Cheryl, your cookies have spread so much joy, obviously, to me and my friends and family. But since I first started working with The Blaze, Jenna's been making them for all of her friends. And they love them. Yay. I sent her some. I sent them to Caroline. And we're cookie fanatics here at The Blaze.
I love it.
We are. Yeah. And I have to say, like, they spread so much joy. I had an immigration attorney friend come over a couple of weeks ago, and she is a woman who routinely gets death threats because she's representing immigrants, and she's so tired all the time. She has 3 kids. And I was like, just sit at my kitchen table. I'm just going to bring you these cookies. And she started eating them and like couldn't stop eating them. And she's like, these cookies are insanely good. And it gave me so much joy to like provide care and feeding for somebody who does so much. So cookies absolutely are spreading love everywhere. And they are so addictive, you guys. If you make them, you will know, like, you'll have to start making them. Now I want to send a batch every week to somebody who I think most needs it. Like
That's a great idea.
Most duress this week.
I love to give them to people, you know, if they're going through a tough time or as a thank you for doing something for me. I do that a lot. But like I said before, people like, now I'm not really going to anybody's houses, but when I used to, and if I showed up without the cookies, they'd be like, where are the cookies? Yeah. So it's like they're in demand.
Gifts. We do that in Savannah. Little things show up on your porch, little treats. Well, because we have porches, of course.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love
If I put these cookies on my front porch today, they'd be frozen in 5 minutes.
Oh my God. I know.
But you can put them in the freezer anyway. So you could just peel them off the porch, right? Kind of love that. So we have about 5 more minutes for final questions and comments. And we've seen the cookies. I made the cookies last night. So I also.
Wow, those look so great.
They're so good. There were a lot more of them.
I have a little after too.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
So yummy. We should send our cookies to Cheryl to see if we did it right. We're going to send you.
Oh, I can tell. I can tell.
These cookies also freeze really well too.
Oh, good to know.
She's
in the dough, but so that's good to know because we don't want cookies to go to waste.
And I have been known to eat them out of the freezer directly.
Really?
Yeah. With coffee.
They are so good, you guys. I'm sorry. They just are. They're so freaking good. I love the idea of putting potato chips in them, though. I might have to do that next time. And
yeah, why not?
Dust the top.
Be careful, Jen, when you do just sprinkle them in so you don't let them crunch up too much. The pretzels, the little mini pretzels, are really good too. I think, is that in the second cookbook, that recipe? Let's see.
It might be. I think it is, Cheryl.
Yeah. The smorgasbord, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And the made with love.
Yeah.
But
your cookbook is just so pretty to look at. Are you busy now really working on your 3rd cookbook, developing recipes?
We're down to the wire now. It's coming out in October. I've been working on this cookbook for over 3 years. It's been the longest thing because I developed a lot of new recipes and also did a lot of research with a lot of old Southern recipes. It's another great Southern baking book. But so there was a lot of research involved. And we're shooting the cover in a couple of weeks and I'm excited that it's going to be out in the world. I mean, I can't even believe it. This year it was originally supposed to be out in 2020. And thank God that didn't happen because I have friends that had books that came out, and unless it was something that was like a novel or a memoir like yours, I mean, cookbooks, it was pretty good because people would buy them, but they just didn't get the exposure that maybe they normally would have.
Cheryl, will you please send your friends who are publishing to us at The Blaze, because that's why we founded The Blaze. We couldn't stand to see these books fall into the void because of the pandemic. We would love to boost cookbook authors.
Oh, sure.
Bring them on. We would love to.
Yeah, that's one thing that when Rachel invited me, I was really excited about that was something that you all were doing, because as you know, a lot of them did get lost in the shuffle. And I have some really great favorites. One of my favorites, you would love her too. She has a bakery in San Francisco. So I'll send you, her book came out this year as well.
Please do.
Great.
We would love to feature them. That would be amazing. So we should probably let Cheryl get back to her bakery. I'm sure you have people looking down the door to get into the cookies. So Rachel, if you want to give your closing thoughts, and Cheryl, we would love to have some closing thoughts from you as well.
Oh, well, I just loved being here. This was like, hanging out with girlfriends talking about baking. It was so fun.
Oh, good. We loved having you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for your time. And thanks, Jenna, for allowing me to to host a baking show. And I want to tell you, we have some guests. We have a lot of other cookbook authors coming up in the next few months, which we'll let you know about, some fun surprises. And I also wanted to let you know, for those of you who are new to The Blaze, we have some exciting authors coming up this week. On Wednesday, on our Authors Love Bookstores show, we're going to be interviewing Ann Napolitano. And we also have Nancy Johnson, who's a Blazer herself, on Authors in Conversation. And this Friday, we are having on the David Duchovny, which we're really excited about. And I guess I can say now, our next Blaze Baking with Rach, we're doing it the last Saturday of every month. So Saturday, February 27th, we're having Elisa Torrey on, who's the founder of Magnolia Bakery in New York City, the store that I used to wait in line for those cupcakes. So that's going to be fun. So lots of great things coming up, and we're just so excited.
I'll be watching for sure.
Yeah, we're going to make some fun stuff with Elisa. We're just working out the details on that. So. And I see Henry, our assistant baker right now, is enjoying some treats.
There's Henry.
I made him a cookie without any chocolate chips because Henry would like you to know these are the best cookies ever.
Henry.
He's like, bring it on, lady.
Some for my little Story. My little dog's name is Story.
I
love that name.
Perfect.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, she, I adopted her, as I was telling you all, but that was her name. But it's so perfect for somebody who loves to write and tell stories.
So perfect.
Perfect fit for The Blaze. And please come back with your new cookbook in October. We're going to save our baking stool for you to come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And you can always refer back to the Facebook page for recipes and tips. We're very excited about this new show. We'll see you next time on Blaze Baking with Rach. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.